Hi, my name is Vincenzo Galasso. I'm a professor of economics at Bocconi University. I'm the head of the Department of Social and Political Science, happily visiting LIS for a conference. I have been working on the political economy of intergenerational policy with a particular focus on pension. I think this is a topic which has become increasingly more relevant with population aging. Population aging tends to have two sort of separate and different effects. An economic effect, which has to do with trying to keep the financial sustainability of pension and welfare system in general. But at the same time, there is some sort of a political demography, because aging means that elderly people tend to have a more weight in the political process, and so they tend to protect actually those systems. So there is a little bit of a dilemma which is related to this process. Now, what I'm going to present tomorrow is a paper which looks into the individual retirement decision and tries to understand what is the role of policy uncertainty. In the last few years, there have been several pension reforms in many countries, so people may actually be a little bit uncertain about which kind of rules they will face when retiring, and so they may actually try to retire early as an insurance against this risk. I think there are lots of interesting questions, of course, about pension. I would probably say that there are two main areas. One has to do with individual retirement decision. We now have a very interesting data set that can be used to study individual decision. In the past, lots of weight was given to the idea that this decision depended on financial and economic incentives. Now we know that there are many other things that may go on, and so I think it's interesting to actually study deeper this by using employees matched data set. On the other hand, another very relevant question has to do with the political economy of pension reforms. Early study use like median voter model, probabilistic voting model, but now I think we can actually go much deeper into the motivation for why people actually tend to oppose or support reforms, and looking, for example, into motivated reasoning and more psychological aspect related to that. I think migration is clearly a super interesting and very recent phenomenon in some European countries at least, and major one. I see migration as an amazing solution for population aging. We know that in Europe the labor force has been shrinking for a while, and actually migrants are actually balancing this demographic dynamics. I see migration as less of a solution to the pension system for a very simple reason that basically immigrants who have regular jobs, of course, they contribute to increase the contribution, but at the same time they will eventually also retire, and so in a way the long-term issues won't be solved. I think there are some other policy that can be beneficial, such as linking retirement age, for example, to longevity, or trying to move more towards mixed system which include also funded parts. I had the opportunity of working for a couple of years as an economic advisor to the Italian Prime Minister on pension issues. The one thing that I realized was how difficult this was in terms of political sustainability. As economists, we tend to have a very normative view of what should be done, but we don't include into our thinking what are the political, or maybe I should say electoral constraints that politicians face. So, for example, where the increase in retirement age, which has taken place in Italy over a long period of time, but also in other countries, typically faces pushback by both unions and firms, for example. And so you have to sit into tables where actually, this union representative and firms representative are making the argument that that policy is going to be very difficult for them to handle. I think that part is very difficult. Another issue which I think is very difficult is also how to deal with bureaucracy whenever you do policy reform, pension reform in particular. you are changing the way in which bureaucracy works. So, there's a pushback also in terms of some institutions like Social Security Administration, for example, for trying to avoid making too large of a changes. So I think we should, as researchers, try to include these sorts of challenges, or I should say probably constraint, into our models, into our thinking.